Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest diversity and inclusion event, recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce. Thank you for joining us for what should be a lively and informative webinar. We hope you finish with learnings to help you with your own progress on diversity and inclusion. So let's get started then, because while many benefits come from greater diversity in the workplace, it has to be understood that recruitment is only part of the picture. Recruitment and retention practices that foster inclusion and belonging are vital to effective talent strategies. Okay, so that's kind of the context of why we're here today. Some housekeeping before we start. Only the panelists will appear on screen. The session is being recorded and it will be made available after the session. Please share any comments in the chat feature, but save your questions for the Q&A section. Please don't put them into the chat section, and we'll get to them in a short while. Our running order for today, we'll be running for about an hour. I'll shortly introduce our guests for the discussion, and then we'll get to the Q&As before squeezing in a special announcement ahead of the close. So please do stay to the end. Before I get to the panel, I better let you know who I am. I'm Andrew Campbell-Edie. I'm Communications Manager at the Irish Centre for Diversity. Self-descriptor, I'm a Black cis man over 40 and less than 60. We'll keep it as vague as that. My pronouns are he, him. I have shaved hair on my head and a black moustache. I'm wearing glasses with a thick black frame. I've been living in Ireland for 10 years after moving here from Brixton, London, so don't be fooled by the accent. And I now live in rural Kilkenny. I'm excited to introduce today's panel. First off, we have Christine White with us, who's our ISL interpreter, who you can see working furiously away in the screen there. We have Kate Butler, who's with us from the Bank of Ireland. We have David Nally from Woodies, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Fiona Triller, who's one of our expert trainers from the Irish Centre for Diversity. So, moving on then, I know I gave a short context at the beginning, but I know there's a lot more to it than that. So there's no one better to turn to than Fiona Triller, who's one of our expert D&I advisors and trainers. And I learn something every time Fiona speaks. And I know that she was speaking yesterday to an IBEC forum. So I learn every time you speak, Fiona. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and welcome to everyone joining us this morning. My name's Fiona, as Andrew says. I do work with the Irish Centre for Diversity. I also work for the UK branch, which is the National Centre for Diversity. I've been working in diversity, equality, inclusion, I'm sorry to say this, for nearly 30 years. I like to think I don't look that old, but now when I see myself on screen this morning in particular, I'm thinking, dear me, something needs to change. So I want to kind of set a bit of context around what we're talking about today and just get us in that kind of thinking frame of mind. I would encourage you to do this all the way through, thinking as we all speak this morning. Think about what your own practices are. Think about what you're doing in your organisation. As I was preparing for this session, the first thing that sprung to mind for me was the phrase VUCA. I don't know if you've come across this. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. And if the world hasn't been VUCA over the last 3 years, then I'm not sure when it has been VUCA. And that uncertainty, that ambiguity, the COVID pandemic has really impacted on all our thinking about the workplace. I think one of the things that furlough gave people, and indeed working from home has given people, is pause for reflection about how and when and where they do their work, about the expectance of employers, about how things are delivered. Maybe people have been thinking about all that lost time spent stuck in traffic jams or stuck on a train that isn't going anywhere whilst trying to get to work. Maybe it's given people time to think about all those lost opportunities with family, not going to the kids' sports day, perhaps missing a really important presentation or concert by your teenagers. Whatever has happened, whatever has shifted, something has definitely shifted over the course of the last few years. And that has resulted in what has become a bit of an exodus. People reviewing how they feel about their organisation and thinking, do you know what, I'm going to move on, I'm going to do something different. And let's not forget those who worked through the pandemic, those in those critical services who were at the sharp end during the pandemic, in particular, those working in health and social care. And many, many people in the health and social care environment have decided, you know what, I've done my bit, I've done my shift, I'm going to move on. So this has created a bit of a perfect storm, if you like, perhaps for the first time in the history of organisations and the way we employ and recruit staff. It's created a perfect storm of people deciding that they don't want to stay with their organisations, and also perhaps being a bit more choosy about who they now want to go and work with. In Ireland, 86% of employers in Ireland are currently saying that they have skills shortages. That's a huge number. In the UK, for the first time in history, we've got more jobs than job seekers. How unbelievable a situation is that? A recent survey by the CIPD in Ireland said that 47% of organisations said that attracting talent and training employees was a priority. And 56% said that they were now offering remote working as an opportunity, which is up from 25% just 2.5 years ago. So this has really been a landmark time for recruitment and for employers. Radical times, I think, need radical and innovative rethinking about the way that we engage with employees or future employees and the whole recruitment process. JobBeat, a recruitment software company, suggested that 80% of job seekers now are highly influenced and seek out information on company cultures. The ability to set the stage and build strong, trustworthy relationships between the employee and the employer is what recruitment has always been about, but is more important than ever. McKinsey earlier this year said that 51% of employees would quit their jobs because they didn't feel a sense of belonging at work. So thinking about that, think about your own recruitment processes. What are you doing at the moment to ensure you attract the best talent? What are you doing to ensure you communicate your organization's purpose, values, and culture? And in a digital age where candidates can share experiences online quickly about an inefficient, poorly designed recruitment process and can have the potential to negatively impact on your employer brand, what are you doing to counteract that? How visible are you about your organization's ambitions around welcoming people, including people, seeking out diverse talent? There's been a lot of discussion recently about generational differences. I think there will be organizations on this call who quite probably have around 5 different generations working for them at this point in time. The baby boomer generation, my own generation, is now maturing, but that doesn't mean that we want to leave the workplace. One of the things we find in the work that we do with our organisations in Ireland is the issue of age comes up regularly. People saying that even though they're older, they still want to be working. They still want to be involved in complex, interesting project work. And we also see the reverse, younger people saying that they're being overlooked for opportunities because they're deemed not to have the experience. So think about who you've got working for you in terms of age, and think about who you want to attract. There's been even more discussion about the so-called Gen Z. Believe it or not, we've now got people entering the workplace who were born in early 2001, 2002. When I say that, I feel horrified because, again, it's just like that seems no time ago. But we have young people coming into the workplace. They will want different things from employers. They particularly want different things by way of recruitment. The majority of Gen Z, according to another McKinsey survey, said that 46% of that younger generation would want to apply for a job on a mobile device. So think about what you're using, the means you're using to recruit and share your employee opportunities. We're growing up in a time where social media influence platforms like TikTok are now being used by recruiters. What are you doing to get your messages across? Whatever messages you put out in the early stages of your recruitment are going to be remembered by your candidates. And today's world is as much about a candidate assessing you as it is you assessing them. So bear that in mind as we hear from our two invited guests this morning, David from Woodies and Kate from the banking sector, who are going to be sharing with you some of the great work that they've been doing. And we'll be joining you again shortly for some questions. Thank you.
Andrew, you are on mute.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you, Fiona. As usual, you never fail to enlighten me with your pearls of wisdom. And with that kind of lead into our invited guests, I'd like to hear from David specifically about any of the real life challenges and triumphs he's specifically had around recruitment at Woodies. So David, Woodies is a much loved household name. So please share with us what steps the organisation has taken to address D&I in recruitment.
Will do. Thanks a million, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. So just to start off, I guess for the benefit of the visually impaired, I have brown hair. I'm mentally still in my 20s, but in reality, probably a little bit closer to 40 than I would like to admit. And I'm currently wearing a blue shirt with a grandfather collar. I'm head of HR here at Woodies, so I lead the HR operations team that look after our colleagues and managers across the business from recruitment through to retirement. For anybody not familiar with Woodies, we're the market leader for DIY home and garden retailer in Ireland, and we have 1,600 colleagues across 36 locations. We're the highest placed retailer in the Great Place to Work Index in Ireland, and we're officially a best workplace for women. And we are also one of the best workplaces in Europe, having placed 41st on the list this year. We're also proud to be an accredited investor in diversity as well. We've been on our D&I journey for about 5 years now. At the start, we built the business case for D&I to achieve buy-in from the wider business. Then we moved on to low-hanging fruit, like introducing policies and procedures, events that celebrated the different backgrounds that our colleagues come from. And in 2020, then we partnered with the Irish Centre for Diversity. And since then, all of our people leaders have gone through inclusive leadership training on how to build and lead diverse teams. So once we set the foundation for the business and for diversity, we began to look at our people data to baseline where we were as a business, where we wanted to get to, and how we'd achieve that. And the biggest opportunity that we observed was around our recruitment approach. And that was traditionally managed by 35 store managers around the country with a very light touch approach from HR and very little input from a HR perspective. When we looked at the data, we identified a 3-year trend where 70% of our new hires were white males. So unsurprisingly, our managers were hiring people that looked, acted and sounded like them. So we pulled the recruitment approach apart, and some of the things that we did was that we invested in an augmented writing tool called Textio. We rewrote all of our job adverts using inclusive language with a universal appeal across gender and age and other characteristics. We updated the employer branding on our careers website to reflect a more diverse range of colleagues within the imagery. We centralized recruitment into the HR team, and we hired 2 talent acquisition specialists. And then we invested in an artificial intelligence recruiting tool called Predictive Hire, which now completes all first-round interviews for entry-level roles within the business. For management and specialist roles, we introduced psychometric profiling and job match profiling so that we had data that would qualify a candidate for the role. We partnered with agencies that support people from different abilities or coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds to join the workforce. And we also looked at what's important to applicants, such as flexible working arrangements, security of hours and contracts, and pay, and the opportunity to progress. And we responded with changes in those areas as well over the last 18 months. So the new approach, from a candidate perspective, it guarantees that for entry-level roles, every single applicant gets an interview at a time and at a pace that suits them. And they're also guaranteed a personalised feedback report based on their artificial intelligence interview. But even more importantly for candidates, they're guaranteed a completely unbiased interview at the start of the recruitment process. So regardless of where they worship, who they love, where they're from, what age they are, or what skin color they have, they're measured in exactly the same way as every other applicant. So the playing field has been totally leveled for all of our applicants. So some of the results that we've seen from these changes, we've gone from having about 7,500 applicants, predominantly in Ireland in 2018, to close to 30,000 applicants in the last 12 months from 42 countries around the globe. Within 3 months of the new approach, we hired 1.5 times more female colleagues, and we hired 3 times more ethnic minorities than we had done with our traditional approach. Today, compared to 2019, we have twice as many colleagues that identify as coming from an LGBTQI+ background, and we're reflective of national demographics on ethnicity and nationality. So we've moved from being 91% Irish in 2019 to being 86% Irish as of today, which is in line with the current census data. Fiona talked there about a challenge around recruitment and around attracting talent. Thankfully, we're one of the few HR teams that can say we're actually not in that position. Our vacancy rate at the moment is hovering around 1% on the basis of all these changes. So recruitment isn't a challenge for us. Absolutely, we're seeing retention peak as other businesses are, but we're at a point where the pace of recruitment is actually matching the pace of attrition. So it hasn't been all plain sailing. It has been a long journey. There have been some challenges along the way. At the outset, we needed to get buy-in from the business and investment from technology and the centralised recruitment approach. There was a nervousness that we'd overshoot the mark and that we'd fundamentally change our culture, or we would end up with a colleague or a workforce that wasn't reflective of our customer base. Most importantly, I guess, from a manager perspective, the change to centralised recruitment has been a massive change. There has been pushback. In rare instances where a candidate hasn't worked out, managers have pointed to those examples and have amplified them as reasons on why they should lead the process of recruiting people from start to finish. So we've listened and we've responded to that feedback. Where it's made sense, we've tweaked our approach. The key for us has been throughout the journey to remove emotion, anecdotes and potential bias, to reiterate that the new process was here to stay and to go back to data every time. So we've looked at this every which way we can from a data perspective. We've looked at retention rates, absenteeism, engagement levels, performance scores, and we've demonstrated to the business that the quality of candidates that we're recruiting within the HR team is actually better than the quality of candidates that we had historically recruited. And in some times, maybe not better, but at least on par, and more diverse as well. Taking the current recruitment landscape into account, then retention rates are broadly the same for colleagues hired under the new approach. Female colleagues, critically for us, female colleagues stay with us twice as long as their male counterparts. The cohort with the highest levels of absenteeism is the cohort that was predominantly being hired through our old recruitment process. And probably most importantly for us from a HR perspective, for our significantly more diverse workforce, in our latest Great Place to Work survey, which is completed by 99% of our colleagues, 98% of our colleagues said that they feel they can be themselves at work, which is great to see that we're more diverse, we're bringing people in and actually they're feeling welcomed and comfortable in being themselves.
David, I'm going to jump in there and just...
I was just going to say, I'm just done, so hopefully that's on time. Thanks, Andrew.
Great, that's amazing. And you can certainly feel those benefits when you go into a Woodies store. So, you know, I think the benefits of doing it or progressing D&I and progressing belonging at work really shine through in a real life experience. Before we go on to Kate and look at kind of how Bank of Ireland has progressed retention, I'd just like to ask Fiona if there's anything you'd like to add to what David said about, you know, all the amazing stuff he's doing around data, because I know handling data and gathering data can be a bit of a challenge. So I wonder if you had anything you'd like to add on that point.
Yeah, I think the great thing about what Woodies have done, as David's just described, is they've measured everything. They measure everything. They gather data. Now, I know when we speak with our clients that people are a little bit nervous around asking people for personal information. And why wouldn't we be? Because, you know, outside of the workplace, every single message we get is about keep your data private, you know, don't let anybody pinch your personal data. So it is with some reluctance that employees will share that. I think where this is done in a way, which Woodies have done, they've done it in a campaign sort of way. They've been clear about why they're asking for it, been clear about how they're using it, shared the information, shared data after things like surveys, shared the success of recruitment and so on, being very open about how, when and where that data is required. And I think that's why they get good responses and they are able to evidence in the way that David's just shown what they've done and been so successful. There's a couple of other things I just quickly wanted to pull out was the fact that they give unsuccessful candidates feedback. That's great for those individuals, helps them grow, gives them a little bit of encouragement for next time, but also it's enhancing in a very subtle way Woodies' reputation as a great employer. And one final thing I wanted to highlight from what David's just shared, many organisations are now using AI systems, technical systems to weed out candidates at the start of the process. But I think what David alluded to earlier is there's no one size fits all. And where candidates would find the kind of technology difficult, they're prepared to flex the process to enable everyone to take part in that recruitment process. So fantastic things that are going on at Woodies, and just 3 things there. Data, gather it, try and ensure that your employees rather know what you're going to do with it, give feedback to everyone, including unsuccessful candidates. And if you've got a system, think about how it can be flexed to ensure that anyone and everyone can apply to your organisation.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Kate, we're going to come to you now. Now, I'm sure Bank of Ireland has some insights on recruitment. So kind of a 2-part question. Is there anything you'd like to add to the recruitment piece, what David and Fiona have just discussed? And also, if you could then take us through what you're doing or what your experience has been with progressing retention at Bank of Ireland. Thank you.
Yep, that will be great. Hi, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here today. So my name is Kate Butler. I look after the Inclusion and Diversity Programme in Bank of Ireland. And for the self-descriptor, I'm sitting with my back to my back garden, dark hair and dark eyes. And I'm wearing a cream top. So yeah, Dave, it was brilliant to get that update in terms of recruitment. I think I'll be giving you a shout afterwards just to actually find out a bit more about some of the specifics for sure. I suppose a focus for us in H2 is around actually education. So again, we use data to look at the various kind of pipelines. So, you know, from applications into hiring manager and into then who gets to interview. And one piece of feedback was really around education. So what we're looking to do is actually, we're doing it next week, is we're taking the recruitment team for a half-day inclusive hiring workshop actually. And we're going to look at things like reiterate the business case for IND, you know, conscious, we all have our unconscious bias, and then practical strategies that we can use to really counteract our own biases, and also then to recruit more diverse talent. So that's on the for the recruitment team, and then also we're looking at our hiring managers and making sure that we're equipping them to make sure that they can make really good decisions for hiring. So that's kind of what just a bit on the recruitment. So if I move on then to belonging and inclusion, so absolutely in Bank of Ireland we have a huge emphasis on belonging and inclusion, and even we call our programme Inclusion First and then Diversity, so that's been a huge focus. If I talk about a couple of areas where we've really kind of found have benefited us, the first one is the framework. So we're really proud of the way the senior leaders support and the visibility. So we have an overall, our CEO obviously is very supportive. And then we have a group exec champion who is our exec champion for I&D. And then we have 6 ERGs, or employee network resource groups. And each of those then have that senior leader who gives them the visibility, the support, the openness, and really kind of sets the tone from the top about bringing your true self to work. I suppose then with the I&D network, so the 6 networks, so we have like gender, parents, carers, accessibility. And the idea with the 6 networks is they're quite broad. So no matter who you are, what stage of life you're at, you know, what challenges you encounter, that there will be a network for you that you can actually recognize yourself in and join. And really we call them kind of the think tank. They are the ones that come up with all the ideas and make my job very easy from a central inclusion and diversity piece. So that's kind of firstly the framework. The second thing then is around the policies and the processes. So one thing when I took on this role, I was really keen to make sure that actually, that we had the credibility, that we had the foundation and the baseline there. So more recently, we've made a change. Say we've increased our maternity leave. We've now also made like all our family friendly policies day one, and where before you might have to have waited like 12 months. We've also, a couple of years ago, we now offer paid fertility leave, paid surrogacy leave. And really what this is trying to do is create an inclusive environment so that recognizing that everyone's experience is different. Some people have different, journeys to parenthood, and what we've actually found is, say with the surrogacy one, it might only impact a small number of people, but actually that statement as a company saying, no matter who you are, what your situation is, we want to kind of support you, has been hugely beneficial. We also did a gender identity for colleagues who are transitioning in the workplace. And as a result of that, from a result of doing the policy, then we kind of put in place loads of different supports. So like, the all gender bathrooms and all those kind of various types of facilities. The third piece then I would say is around measurement. And I like back to David's point, when we look about diversity, we would measure it, obviously kind of, I&D dashboard, recruitment dashboard, but we actually started a campaign last year where it allowed colleagues to self-declare. So if you're a colleague and you're a non-binary, or you're a colleague and you have a caring responsibility, there was no way for us to actually capture, who you are, what percentage. So what we did is we ran a campaign, we enabled colleagues to self-declare, and then now this year we've actually started publishing it. So we were able to say actually, 4% of our colleagues are LGBT, 6% of our colleagues are carers. And what we're able to do then is say, actually, are we representative of the society, the customers, the communities that we serve, and also then, tailor our plans accordingly. The other piece on measurement then is engagement. So we run an annual survey, an open view survey. And in that we have I&D demographics, and then we have I&D questions, and it enables us then to kind of see actually, how colleagues feel. So for example, we know colleagues from an ethnic minority are actually 10 basis points more engaged than colleagues from an ethnic majority. So they're more likely to recommend the bank, they're more likely to think that they can succeed. But then we noticed from the last open view that our colleagues from an LGBT, actually, there was a differential between heterosexual and LGBT in terms of senior leader. They didn't feel that they had the senior leader support. So this year now we have a new GEC champion, he's openly gay. We've had a kind of summer with pride. We've had CEO kind of messages really amplifying that key message. We see you, we hear you, you belong, which has been brilliant. And I think the last part then is we're not experts, and we're constantly learning. So I would say partnerships and accreditation has been huge for us. So say, for example, partnerships, with Open Doors, and partnership maybe with like 30% Club on Gender. On accreditation, then we were actually the first Irish company to get the BDF, so it's the Business Disability Forum accreditation. So we received that 2 years ago, and also then our work with the Investors in Diversity, we're continuing to progress that, going for gold. So I'll just stop.
That's brilliant, Kate, and it's so good to hear, things in practice like continuous improvement and refreshment with the work that you're doing around the inclusive leadership and inclusive recruitment teams, and amazing work with ERG and the support network. So amazing. Fiona, is there anything that you wanted to pull out from what Kate was talking about there?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic work going on at Bank of Ireland around inclusion and diversity. There's three things I'd highlight from what Kate's just said. The first is that this is led from the top of the organisation, very senior level support, sponsorship, which makes all the difference when you're trying to change the workplace culture. The second thing, again, Kate again talked about this, the importance of data, the importance of being open and transparent about why it's needed and sharing that data afterwards. But I think that the one thing that stood out for me from what Kate's just said is that we see you, we hear you, you belong here. And that's the workplace culture. That's how people will feel and experience it. And just a couple of points on that. When people in the workplace culture don't feel that they belong, they're likely to withdraw on the job and become less productive. One of the other things I would encourage organisations to do is actually calculate the cost of turnover, because that's probably much more substantial than you think. And if only you could reduce that turnover and use that cost to increase your workplace culture activities and that sense of belonging. And one final point on this, and Kate referenced this in what she said, that bit of transitioning an employee from a future employee to somebody joining the organisation, the onboarding induction piece is critical. There's all sorts of research that would say people are likely, as I've read somewhere, 69% of people are likely to review whether they're going to stay with an organisation within the first few weeks of joining it. So think about not just what you do before somebody joins and not what happens when somebody joins, but that bit in between, what happens when the employees transition into your organisation. Fantastic work going on at Bank of Ireland there.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, you've kind of really, both you and Kate really captured the whole revolving door syndrome and how that churn is a huge investment that just goes out the door, where talent just either don't come through the front door or they leave repeatedly, even though you're doing everything you should be doing in recruitment. If you're not balancing it with retention, that's where the conflict lies. So we've covered recruitment, we've covered retention. Another area that I'd like us to look at now is the phrase cultural add rather than cultural fit, which has become a kind of a maxim in D&I circles, especially around recruitment and retention. So does anyone have any, this is to anyone on the panel, and I'll leave you to fight it out. Does anyone have any experience they'd like to share on that point of looking for cultural add rather than cultural fit?
I can jump in here if you want, Andrew. So obviously we've become a good bit more diverse in the last couple of years, and what we're seeing is that we have a strong set of core values that applicants are resonating with and people are resonating with as they come into the business. So whether the new colleague is down the road in Hackettstown or is coming from Honduras, that our values are actually transcending race, ethnicity, gender orientation, what have you. And we're seeing that people are slotting nicely into our culture and bringing different perspectives. I probably point to myself or classify myself a bit as a cultural lad. So as a gay man joining Woodies back in 2015, I've been quite honest insofar as I thought I'd probably stay with the business for a year, develop my career and then move on to another company. I didn't see myself, I saw Woodies as quite a macho, kind of male dominated business that I wouldn't slot in nicely to. And I've come in, I've brought ideas, people have thought I was off the walls. My first year I was going around quoting Mary Poppins in business meetings. And people were looking at me like I had two heads. But actually I've become quite established. I've had 5 roles now in my 7 years here, and done quite well by coming in and bringing a slightly different perspective, but actually equally slotting in nicely with our values in terms of it's the type of company, type of way I like to operate. Don't know if that answers it.
Fiona?
Yeah, I think David's description of his story of joining Woodies and his kind of journey within Woodies is exactly what we're talking about. It's all too easy to put the effort into your recruitment processes, get that right, try and make them bias-free. But we're human. We want to relate to people, and sometimes having somebody who's a bit, as David described himself, and I'm going to use this phrase, as a bit off the wall, quoting Maury Poppins, is a bit, whoa, what have we done here? But that's what diversity is all about. It's appreciating people who are unique and different. We are all unique and different. And it's about opening up those opportunities and being particularly in those critical decision-making points of the recruitment process. What is this individual going to add to our organisation? What does this individual bring that is different? How are we going to be empowered and improved by bringing someone in who has got a totally different perspective to all of us on the panel and to other members of our team? So great there. I'm sure Kate's got some reflections on this topic as well.
Yeah, sorry, I got kicked out there. I would say the same. I think as well, like sometimes I find with IND, even though we was saying about the 6 networks, like we're all different. Like even I was in a workshop yesterday and we're talking about unconscious bias, and, it was very focused on gender and ethnicity, and one of the people in the room said, well, actually, I have experience of being excluded. I've been in situations where, so I can totally see the point about just making sure that it's a welcome environment, that everyone can express their views. And for us in Bank of Ireland, that's the power of the colleague networks. They push us to be like, well, have you thought about this? Or really you should consider doing that. And to be honest, like some of the parts can be a bit uncomfortable, but actually then it's the benefit. It's the sum of the parts where you're like, okay, well, actually, if one colleague is saying this, let's explore it. Let's do it a bit more. Like even this year, we're doing our women's health series. We're talking about things, like menopause period, stuff like we never, I would never thought we would have been talking about in the bank, but actually, that's what colleagues want to talk about. And that's what, men, women, everybody, it's a topic that everybody can kind of buy into and engage. So for sure, I can totally see that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. And welcome back. Okay, so I think we're going to head over to the Q&A section now. And apologies to anyone that has put questions into the chat function, but I really do need to concentrate on the Q&A side, and we'll get to the stray questions if we have time. So I'm just going to start from the top. Monica asks, in terms of internal interviews, does the panel have views on competency-based interviews? Should questions be advised in advance, especially when they're neurodivergent candidates? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to that, or any response?
Yeah, in the bank we do competency-based interviews, but we offer every single colleague a reasonable adjustments. So we kind of say if you need any extra help or any extra support. So we kind of have our standard one, but then we also then have that offer of the reasonable adjustments. So whatever they need, if they need extra time or they want, we can provide the questions in advance. So again, there is that kind of flag that they can do it, and in a nice way. It's very open to be like, look, it's as part, even when you apply for the job, it's like, get in touch if you need any extra support or help for the process.
Similar to that, Andrew, our purpose is to find the right candidate. We don't want to catch people out within the recruitment process. So our talent acquisition team tend to act like coaches. They handhold people through the process. They demystify it. So they'll say, these are the questions that you're going to be asked. These are the themes of what you're going to be asked. And here's what a good answer looks like. Now it's over to you to relate that back to yourself and present your best self in the interview. So we try and keep it, quite personal, and being mindful that some people won't have been in an interview process for weeks or months or years, and so that we handhold them throughout it.
Yeah, I think both of the making reasonable adjustments and the coaching methodology that Woodies have are really important. We sometimes neglect the internal candidates. We put all our efforts on engaging people, new people, to bring them in and put a lot of effort there. But internal candidates, as David's just said, it could be somebody who's been around your organisation for some time, hasn't had an interview. Do you provide, interview skills training perhaps? Do you have somebody that could be used in a coaching sounding board way? So whatever you're doing externally, think about, you know, your internal candidates in the same way. There's still individuals who are putting themselves forward through what is one of the most stressful things you can do in the workplace.
Okay, two very quick questions here. David, could you repeat the name of the data handling and the AI tool that you use at Woodies?
Yeah,
and then, can Kate repeat the 6 networks or EIGs that are supported at Bank of Ireland?
Yeah, apologies. I keep calling them Predictive Hire. They've just rebranded to Sapia. So it's SAPIA.ai is their website.
Yeah, perfect. And on the networks, gender balance, parents and carers, multicultural, accessibility, with pride, LGBT, and intergenerational. It's an easy one.
Right. Okay, so that was an easy one. Now we're going to tackle one. I can't find the question exactly, but I know that it was around ageism in the workplace. And David, you've kind of alluded to this, and I'm sure Kate, you've got something to add to it. Just what steps have you been taking to tackle, I suppose, the unconscious bias, or even the AI tool, unweighting the age issue? And David, perhaps you could tell us, one of the questions I saw around ageism also was about a colleague who was a job seeker and had his date of birth on his CV, got no interest. He took the date of birth off, and then managed to get a job interview. So perhaps you could talk around that.
Yeah, so around the AI tool, it's iterative. And we have other ways to recruit into the business. So we have partnerships with other organizations. We do ask candidates to reach out to us if they're not comfortable with the technological approach. And the system learns. So once we add somebody that the system wouldn't have naturally recommended, it rebases and it starts to look for those people. It also looks at length of service. So we input churn data, and it's looking for more candidates like the ones that have stayed with us over 12 months than the ones that haven't. And it's now actually at a rate that it's got a 70% accuracy rate of predicting tenure at the hiring point. There's other aspects of the recruitment process. There's one great example where we had a candidate who scored highest in the job match profile. They scored highest in the psychometric profiling. They scored exactly the same as the other candidate that they were in the recruitment process with in the in-person interview. And the hiring manager came to my team and said, I want to hire this candidate, but it wasn't the highest scoring candidate. It wasn't the most suitable candidate. And I popped a call in, without trying to step on a hiring manager's toes, but to have a conversation with them and say, look, I'm looking at data that tells me this is the best candidate, and you're telling me you want to hire somebody else. Can we have a chat on it? Can we go back to your training with the Irish Centre for Diversity and have a bit of reflection? And the hiring manager came back to me about 4 hours later and said, I didn't want to hire that candidate because they're twice my age. And now that you put it in black and white, remove the emotion, remove the data, and remind me of the unconscious bias training, I'm going to go with that candidate that actually deserved the job. And then I LinkedIn every month for a couple of months. Now they're the best performer within the team. So they had to have one opportunity where their bias was challenged, and then to see it work. And now I'm comfortable that actually that hiring manager is open to hiring people of all ages. But it's back to the data again, and having a direct, honest conversation with people where you do see bias creeping in.
It's great. And again, we brought back to data, and that leads us to one of the questions is, what specific questions do you, and this is, I guess, a question for Kate really, what specific questions do you ask for benchmarking, either through time or against peers, or what do you measure your D&I against?
Yeah, perfect. So what we would do is in our colleague engagement survey, we would ask like demographic questions. So like, gender, but it has a more like a lot of, like male, female, non-binary, just more kind of different drop downs. We'd also offer, so all the kind of the 6 networks, effectively, we would work with the colleagues in those networks to come up with the questions. So then at least we were able to kind of identify what the representation is. then the types of questions we would ask is, there's a general engagement survey. So, you know, how likely are you to stay in Bank of Ireland? You know, do you think Bank of Ireland values diversity? Do you think, you know, you feel you can succeed in the bank? And what we do then is we're able to track, you know, the I&D metrics. So if I identify, you know, as an LGBT colleague, you know, how do I compare when I'm saying my intention to stay, my experience of inclusive behaviour? We also link it quite closely to psychological safety. So speak up, you know, so if you, you know, if you find instance of, you know, discrimination or anything like that, that there is also the option, you know, how safe they feel to actually speak up. So they're the types of questions we ask. In terms of benchmarking, then we work with our agency. So they have a global benchmark. So they're able to tell us actually how we perform against the global background. And then what I've noticed is actually a lot of companies, through their annual reports or the responsible sustainable business, they're now actually starting to publish kind of what their representation. So before, very focused on gender, you know, trying to get to 50-50, but now it's gotten much broader in terms of actually, back to the point even on ageism, you know, what opportunities have I created? What development programs have I done? What interventions have I made to actually making sure that everybody has a chance to progress, you know, thrive and develop in the company?
Fiona, I wondered, was there anything you wanted to add to any of those questions? Because I'm sure there's some wonderful words of wisdom lurking.
No, not on this occasion, Andrew. I think David and Kate have responded particularly. You know, anecdotes bring this to life, and I think both Kate and David have referred to this. This is not easy stuff. You will get pushback. You will get people challenging what you're trying to do, and I think they've both illustrated that they're as an organisation, with that top leadership support, that they can progress and really achieve something quite fantastic in each of their organisations.
And I'm going to go back to data because there's another question that's come in asking, because the AI tool, David, that you use seems to be quite key to your whole central recruitment. A question's come in about how do you ensure diversity of thought that's been programmed into the AI? How do you know that the AI doesn't have its own inbuilt biases that have been fed in through algorithms and scary things?
It's a risk, but it goes back to how regularly we're updating it. So we're sending data back to the AI partner with the retention rates, absenteeism, engagement, all of those things, to say actually these are the best type of people for our business. It's underpinned by a competency framework that's linked back to our brand values as well. So we're in constant dialogue with the provider. They have a fairly sizable team behind them that have given us a fair degree of comfort that it's as unbiased as it can be. But the big measure for me is, if I look at Woodies 2 years ago, we weren't reflective of national demographics. As I said to our managers recently, I said if we're recruiting 70% white males, if we were recruiting for the clan, that'd be a great metric, but we're recruiting for Modern Ireland, it doesn't stack up. We introduced the AI and now we're reflective of the general population. So that tells me that the bias has been removed as best as it can be at the moment in the process.
We've got time for one more question, and I'm going to direct it to Kate, if you don't mind, putting you on the spot. The question from the Irish Wheelchair Association. They wondered, do you have any general advice for applicants about when is the best time to disclose a disability, and how have you handled it from the perspective of an employer? Or do you have any advice for?
No, for sure. Like I would normally say at the start of the process, and really that's just so that we can make absolutely, you know, every best intention to actually make it a good experience, you know, and even actually I think in our form there is, you know, we do ask, you know, would you like, you know, there is, for anybody who's applying for a job, we do ask that question to kind of say, now again, it's not a mandatory question, it's more optional, but again, it just helps us actually make the process a better one for the candidate. So that's the first thing. And so the second part then is from an employer perspective, is it? Yeah, so like, look, from an employer perspective, like I think as well in Bank of Ireland, we have a lot of partners that we partner up with. So like, for example, you know, as part of our graduate program now, we always assign like 2 spots with the head, you know. So again, it just is creating kind of more diversity through that. So, you know, even I met one of the colleagues yesterday. So again, from an employee perspective, you know, colleagues get used to actually seeing more diversity around. But the way we normally do it is kind of partner up externally with companies that are experts, because what we found with the likes, say, ahead, they help us as well from a candidate. So when the candidate comes in, you know, upskill his team, you know, his line manager, maybe the wider area about how do we make actually his experience of joining Bank of Ireland as inclusive as possible.
Okay, thank you for that. And the Q&A section could go on all day, but I know that we've all got work to do, and I know that we have a special announcement to make. So I'd like to thank the panelists. Thanks to Christine for the ISL interpreting. Just a reminder that there's recording available, and thank you to the audience for staying with us to the end. Our exciting announcement is for anyone that has any interest in D&I in Ireland. And I'm beside myself to let you know that we're launching the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards. These are the first ever dedicated awards to celebrate and champion the individuals and organisations that go above and beyond in their commitment to providing excellence in diversity and inclusion in Ireland. For impartiality, the Irish Centre for Diversity team are hands off. So we've gone straight to the top, and we're working with Donna O'Connor, who is our awards guru, who many of you will know or may know from her highly regarded HR Champion Awards and more. If Donna's on the call, I'd like to hand over to her to explain more about the event, because as I said, the Irish Centre for Diversity team are completely hands off. So we have no influence over the judging process. And I know that Donna's got some words to tell you about the judges that we've got on board. So if Donna's on board, can someone give me a nod and let me know?
I am here, Andrew.
Phew.
I can see you. You're probably looking at a sea of faces at the moment. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Andrew. I hope I can live up to it. As an event organizer, it's really exciting actually to be involved in the inaugural event for something that's going to be as impactful as the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards. The winners are going to be announced. So the date for the diary is February 2nd at a gala awards evening in Croke Park. From my perspective, this is really the best of both worlds. I have the wealth of experience from the Irish Centre for Diversity in terms of putting this really incredible initiative together. But at the same time, as Andrew has said, they are impartial, entirely independent. The judging process will be chaired by Margot Slattery, whom I'm sure is known to all of you, the Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion at ISS. The awards, we're delighted to say, are open to everyone. So you can enter whether you are a partner of the Irish Centre for Diversity or whether you are undergoing the diversity accreditation at the moment. So it's as I say, it's entirely independent, impartial, and open to everyone in Ireland who is undergoing sort of a transformative journey in their organisation around their D&I. At the awards themselves, we're going to share some of the stories. It's a great opportunity on the awards night to actually learn from the journeys of others who are, working so hard within their organisations to make Ireland a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive country. We have 10 categories. I'm going to list the categories in line with the sponsors for them, so you can also actually see the incredible support that we've already gotten for the awards from our sponsors. So you can look forward to entering the Matheson Outstanding Diversity Initiative, Nestle Advancing Gender Equality. We have EY Advancing Race Ethnicity Equality. We have a category for Advancing Disability Equality. AIB's Diversity and Inclusive Leader or Emerging Leader category. There is an Employee of the Year category. National Lottery are supporting the LGBTQ+ inclusion. We have an Outstanding Employee Resource Group category. Publicjobs.ie is supporting Public Sector Organisation of the Year. And then finally, Musgrave Company of the Year. So as you can see, there's 10 categories. We have a great website launch, which gives all of the details on it, which is ndai.ie. And I'm welcoming all inquiries regarding the awards, and my email address, and I know you'll be getting all of this separately, but is awards@irishcentreforddiversity.ie. And of course, you know, nothing will be complete without a bit of social media push. So look out for the hashtag NDIA 2023. Actually, Andrew, you were kind of given a little bit of a hint there as to the announcement with the hashtag in the background. But we're expecting loads of inquiries. You know, as Andrew said, I'm a seasoned awards organizer, but I always love to bring that layer to it, where you bring people on you share the journey of the best practice, and that people actually get to learn from what others are doing. So it's not simply about the nomination, but actually engaging in the entire nomination process, and you know, putting your hand up as being a leader in terms of best practice in this area. So we're looking forward to a ton of engagement, lots of questions, and as I say, it's a great move for the Irish Centre for Diversity to be launching this.
Yeah, one of the kind of the motivations of doing it, of putting this awards on, is that we know, certainly through lockdown and since Black Lives Matter, that there's a huge interest in diversity and inclusion, and amazing progress that's happening. And we don't engage with everybody. You know, we don't get around to hearing what's happening in all the different forums with all the different groups as much as we'd love to. So we really want to, we know that this great work is happening, so we really want to capture it all and celebrate it all, and give a platform to it all, as Donna said, so that, you know, we can all work together and learn from each other's best practice to, you know, build a greater sum of parts. And, you know, I hate to mention the lockdown word again, but we're so pleased that the event's going to be in person.
Absolutely.
Because that's something we all need. And this is, you know, we're really looking forward to what should be a really great event. We're looking forward to hearing about all the amazing work that's happening. We're looking forward to getting out there and meeting people again, and networking, sharing experiences. So very exciting. And we're hoping that everybody really engages with the awards. If you don't want to enter yourself or your organization yourself, please do share it with other people in your network and get them to enter, because, as I said, there's amazing work happening out there and we'd love to hear about it. So as Donna said, the website is open now. You're getting a sneak preview by attending today, because we haven't launched the website in any great way, shape or form. It went live, I think, a few moments ago. So you're getting, after this session, if you can have a look at that, you'll be the first people seeing it. All the information's there. Please use the hashtag. And as Donna said, any questions, the email address is awards@irishcentreforddiversity.ie. That's it, I think.
I suppose if I was to make a final point, I would say that, you know, the actual entry process itself has been designed to be really simple to engage with. You know, we want to get a first level, at the first, I suppose, point of contact with you, is we want to get an idea of category that you're interested in, maybe a very kind of like an elevator pitch sort of idea of where the key achievements are, and then we will work with you prior to the interview with the judges to get the rest of the information. So, you know, sometimes people can feel a little nervous about engaging with an awards process. They think they need to push it off a little bit till they get everybody together. This is something that you can, you know, put together an initial top line submission within kind of 20 minutes, half an hour. So, you know, please do engage with us, and we will work with you to get the balance of the information before the judging process commences.
And one last thing I should say is that I'm sure as the team come out and carry on with our usual training and coaching and consulting work, please don't ask us anything about the awards, because we won't know anything about the entries and what should be going in them and what other people have said. You won't, our lips are sealed. We, in fact, won't even know. So
I won't even tell you, Andrew, so they won't be able to get the information from you.
Okay, I've just seen a message saying that the website doesn't seem to be working. If you give us a few moments, I'm sure the team, the back office team will sort that out, and then certainly by in the next half an hour it'll be up and working. As I said, any questions, do email us through awards@Irish Centre for Diversity.
I think it's just popped up that it's working there now, Andrew.
Okay. And we're 12 o'clock, so we're just on time. So once again, thank you everyone for sticking with us to the end. Thank you to David, thank you to Kate, thank you to Fiona, and please do enter the awards. We're looking forward to it. See you soon. Thank you.